We successfully installed Git on our Windows or Mac computers, and now to get started, we'll switch from the command prompt only interface to a real code editor, an IDE, an integrated development environment. And for this, we'll use a free and very common and heavily used cross-platform IDE, Visual Studio Code. Not Visual Studio, but Visual Studio Code. So make sure to Google for the right tool here. And then you should find this link, code.visualstudio.com. And if we click onto this link, you should see this page right here. And on this page, you can immediately see the download option of Visual Studio Code. As I said, it's totally for free. It's a cross-platform IDE. So if you're working on a Windows machine, you should see the download for Windows option. For Mac users, this should be the Mac option right here. Let's click onto this option here to start the download. And we are redirected to the getting started page. Not required for this course. I'll quickly guide you through the first steps in Visual Studio Code in this lecture. So once the download is finished, make sure to navigate to the folder the file was downloaded to and double click the file to start the installation. So here we go. Let's first accept the agreement here and let's press next. Here we can choose the folder where VS Code should be installed to. I'll go with the default one here. The shortcut name should also be Visual Studio Code, so we'll also go with next right here. Here we can now add some additional options. For example, if you want to create a desktop item. One thing that's very important though is that the add to path option right here is selected. This simply means that we can use the command prompt, so our command line interface here, from inside Visual Studio Code. Therefore, make sure to add this option right here and press next right there. And now the installation can start. This can take a few seconds, but it should be finished quickly. Here we are. And now we can actually start Visual Studio Code immediately. So let's tick this box right here and let's press finish. And there you should see the welcome screen of an empty Visual Studio Code project. Now with the control key on Windows and the command key on Mac machines and the plus or minus keys on the keyboard, you can zoom in or zoom out. I'll zoom in a bit for you to make it better readable. And first we can close this welcome screen. So we can click onto the close symbol next to the welcome tab. And now we have a real empty project in here. Now, as I said, I'll give you a very quick introduction into Visual Studio Code in this lecture. If you want to dive deeper into the tool or you never worked with Visual Studio Code, you can find a link attached to this video. There on our Catamount website, you can find a free and more detailed introduction into the tool. However, let's explore what we have right here and let's also add our first project folder to Visual Studio Code now. First, in case the layout of Visual Studio Code is a bit different in your case, then you can quickly change this in this View ribbon up here. And there, we can go to Appearance, and here we have plenty of options on what we want to display by default in the tool. These are the options I'm talking about. So in case you don't have this menu here to the left, you can, hide or show it by selecting or unselecting the activity bar. You can see it right here. So in case you don't have this option, go to Appearance and activate it. This is also true for other options. For example, if we go back to Appearance and unselect the status bar, then this bar here at the bottom, which was displayed previously, disappeared. If I go back to View Appearance, the bar appears. You can see it right here. So by playing around with these options, you can adjust Visual Studio Code according to the look that I have right here. Besides that, another core option is maybe the look of the tool, so this dark look. If this looks different in your case, then you can select the File option up here, then Preferences, Settings over here, and here you have a search bar now. If you enter Theme in here, like this, and scroll down a little bit, you can see that the default theme selected is Dark Plus. So in case you have different colors, you can change it right here to specifically this Dark Plus, or also another one. For example, this high contrast option here, which doesn't look too good in my opinion. So I'll go with Dark Plus, but as I said, feel free to change this according to your preferences. And let's close this now maybe. Besides this, we also have this activity bar here to the left. We also won't dive too deep into all of these options. The most important one for our purposes is the first one here. If you click it, you see that this Explorer opens, which helps us to manage our project in a few seconds. You also have other options in here, like this search option, or the third option down here is an integrated source control option, which helps you to use Git features from inside of Visual Studio Code. Something we'll not dive into at this stage of the course. As I mentioned already, we want to learn how to use GitHub only by using it in the command prompt on Windows or the Z shell on the Mac. Therefore, these options are not relevant for us at the moment, meaning we can go back to our Explorer option here to finally create our first project in Visual Studio Code. Before we do that though, we need the command prompt or the Z shell, well, to kind of be available here in Visual Studio Code. This can be added from our view ribbon up here once again. In this view ribbon, we can again go to the appearance, and in there, in our options, we can select the show panel option. If we do this, you see, let me bring this down a bit, maybe like this. You see that we have our command prompt integrated into Visual Studio Code in this terminal ribbon. How do I know that this is the command prompt? Well, here you see this CMD symbol, which indicates that we are running the command prompt in there. You can also run different shells though. If you click onto this arrow down here, you could, for example, also select the PowerShell. This would now be available here to the right, so you can switch back to the command prompt or the PowerShell right here. Same thing is also possible for Mac users, of course, so you have alternatives to the Z shell integrated right here. But we don't want to use any other shells. Therefore, if we click onto this delete symbol right there, you can remove the PowerShell and we can go with the command prompt as supposed to. With this, we have access to the command prompt. The only thing we need right now is a folder which we can then use to add files to it and to then also manage it via Git. Therefore, to add a folder, we can quickly maybe drag a Visual Studio Code to the right here. Now create a new folder. Here in my case, I'll do this on the desktop. And I'll call this project folder Git Basics. You can, of course, this name differently. And now to bring this folder into Visual Studio Code, we can simply drag and drop it right here. Now we have to confirm that we trust the authors of the files in the folder. We of course do this, so we can confirm this via yes down here and maximize the window. And now, after closing our welcome screen, we can again bring up our command prompt, which is hidden here again by default. So let's bring it back in view, appearance, and show panel. So again, it's the command prompt. And with that, we are ready to go now. Now we can finally create our first project files and see how we can manage these files via Git.